Good to have you here, 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop, BJ Bennett, glad you're making us a part of your day.
Get to here on the show is again.
We look ahead to some Braves baseball tonight. Braves in a big series against the New York Mets coming up here this week. They don't have to catch Marcus Stroman, don't have to catch Jacob deGrom, who's been just otherworldly there on the mound. So, favorable matchup for the Braves coming up this week. We'll get to that. Also look at rookie mini camps, which took place over the weekend. A lot of talk out of Jacksonville about Travis Etienne and Kyle Pitts with the Falcons going on there as well. So we'll look at that and more coming up. But, BJ, as we mentioned, Braves and Mets coming up this week after a 2 out of 3 tilt against Milwaukee. Maybe the Braves bats are waking up a little bit. Acuna and Freeman both atop the standings in home runs in the National League. And Freddie Freeman, of course, over the weekend got his 250th home run with the Atlanta Braves, putting him in some obviously elite company. Hank Aaron, Eddie Matthews, Dale Murphy, Chipper Jones, and Andrew Jones, the only ones to do it in a Braves uniform.
Very cool. And congratulations to Freddie. That's quite the accomplishment. You think about those names, just incredible. But Kev, you said going into this weekend that Milwaukee had a team that was struggling offensively. Maybe you could get right. And I think you called it. You know, you would have loved to have gotten yesterday's game and, swept the Brewers, but you had some pretty good pitching performances. I'm not talking about yesterday, but Ian Anderson, had a no-hitter going into the 6th or 7th inning. And I think you saw some progress. You needed to win the series. You won the series. You needed some momentum. You got some momentum, and that's even with Acuna, missing the series mostly. But I think you turn the page now. You're feeling better than you were a couple of days ago, and this is a really, really big series. I know I feel like I say that more often than I should, given that we're in the month of May. But the Mets 7-3 in their last 10. I know they struggled against Tampa, but prior to that series, they were one of the hottest teams in baseball. You're talking about a team that's in first place in the division. You're talking about a team that's pitching really, really well, and it's not just deGrom, who's been dealing with some injury stuff. So from a confidence standpoint, this is the first series against the Mets. I think you can set the tone. I think you can obviously make some progress in the standings, potentially, depending upon how it plays out, be in first place after a couple of days here. But I think psychologically, you need to show yourself and the Mets that you're the defending champs. You were the favorite for a reason entering the start of the year. I think this is a really big series and a really big start tonight for Max Fried.
No, I agree. I think when you look at what the Braves was able to do, in the series, I think doesn't always come down to, Kevin, you just want to win the series. I mean, if it's 4, you want to, 3 out of 4. If it's 3, you want to get 2 out of 3. I think because of what the Braves haven't done, we nitpick everything. The Braves scored 7 runs in 1 inning yesterday, like 7. The problem is the Braves can do that. But on the other hand, or the good thing is they can do it. The problem is they shouldn't have to do it. Most times you score 7 runs in the inning, you usually be winning. You don't still be down by 1. But I do agree with Snit. I mean, you're talking about the fact that you got to put a lot of some good play in back-to-back games. And BJ, as we're gonna be saying this, before the All-Star game, after the All-Star game, it's not gonna get any easier for this Braves team. Thank God that nobody's running away with the division, but enough can't be said about Freddie Freeman. I mean, 250 career home runs, thus far, with the Braves, joining guys like Hank Aaron, Eddie Matthews, Dale Murphy, Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones. That's unique company. And the thing about it is, are we not appreciating Freddie Freeman enough for what he's meant, not just this year and last year? Freddie Freeman was good when he was the only thing to talk about. Like, when it was, you saw what Freddie Freeman did? What about the Braves? We don't want to talk about that. Let's just talk about what he did. I mean, BJ, he earned his stripes as far as like not being a guy that was, trying to leave the Braves when they weren't doing well. Finally won, National League, an MVP last year. You look at what he's doing this year. I saw Freddie Freeman in a slump this year. Obviously, he's not in that slump now. He's still, I think, Ronald Acuna Jr. is the best player for the Braves, but I think the heart and soul of the Braves is Freddie Freeman for what he's meant. But the Braves got back to, they won 2 out of 3. They got a Mets team that's not going to be, easy by no stretch of the imagination. But I think the bats are coming alive because, once again, we do all we can to avoid the inevitable, and that is the bullpen. What in the world is going on with the bullpen? But they're going to have to get it together. I know we've been saying that since game 1, but at least that lineup is looking good. At least, you got guys making key contributions right now. Ian Anderson, I mean, Kevin, I mean, it's, the stage hasn't. Maybe last year was, he had to grow up in a shortened season, got to play in the playoffs. Maybe that has, first start ever was against the Yankees. I think the second start ever was against the Red Sox. So the young man understands, what it is to pitch in the big leagues. But, your assessment of this Braves team winning 2 out of 3 and, with these Mets coming to town.
Yeah, I think this is a team that's looking for some momentum, and this is one of those happy quirks of the schedule where you don't catch Stroman or DeGrom. Well, I say you don't catch Stroman or DeGrom. They have an unannounced pitcher for tomorrow, but one would think if you thought it was going to be Stroman or DeGrom, you would say that. But as far as announced right now, not going to be Stroman or DeGrom. But I think there's a chance for you to catch some momentum. And again, you look at the standings. So we were looking at them this morning. The National League East is the most tightly contested division in baseball right now. Top to bottom, separated by 3 games. There's no other division like that. There's some that are close, but there's no other division like that. National League West, I think Colorado is already 8 games out. The Central, you got teams 6 games out. The East, top to bottom, 3 games separate everybody in the National League East. So what does that mean? When you're in division, you got to earn it, right? And BJ's talked about this. Makes these very important games. Not that they aren't all important. Some of them are more important than others. These are because they're head-to-head inside the division. Those are the ones that really allow you to make up ground and or lose ground in a big, big hurry. So, yeah, good series coming up with the Mets. I don't think it's like season defining at this point, but it's one that you can go out and make a little statement here in mid-May to say, hey, if we take 2 out of 3, now you're a game back in the National League East, and you've kind of put them on notice, hey, maybe we have your number a little bit here in 2021. A lot remains to be seen, but it kind of gets that sense of the way the Marlins and the Braves used to be, where it's like, hey, the Braves go out and win 5 out of 6. It's like, yeah, we're going to take care of you. And then, every team has those teams they go out and make those statements against. I think the Braves need to do that here against the Mets early in the season. And if they get lucky and don't have to face Stroman or DeGrom, all the better. But it appears this team, from an offense standpoint, is starting to round into form.
And that's been great to see. And we knew it was going to happen to a certain extent, right? I mean, Ozuna, Albies, Freeman, these guys, they're not going to finish the season hitting 200, 205. You've seen everybody pick it up. And then you couple that success with, obviously, Ronald Acuna, what he's done this year. Austin Riley deserves a lot of credit for the season he's had because, Kevin, I know, all of us going back to the preseason and the offseason looked at third base and thought, well, okay, is Austin Riley ready to be the kind of mainstay in the lineup? And I think so far the answers have been yes. And one thing that's impressed me about Austin Riley isn't just his average, which has been, it fluctuates obviously, but it's been in the 280s, the 290, is the on-base percentage. Sometimes it's hard for young hitters to be patient, to take walks. And you look at the great hit, right? You look at Freddie Freeman. The average is, and I understand he's struggling a little bit right now, but the average over the long haul is going to be there. But it's not just the average, it's the on-base percentage. Freddie Freeman gets on base with a hit or a walk, 45% of the time he's up there? And that is such an advantage. And I don't think we fully appreciate that plate discipline, how big of a factor that is in Freddie Freeman's success. And I think you've seen Austin Riley pick up some of that, and other guys, Albies as well, a hit matters. Obviously, you get a single, double homer, but you can also impact a game by walking. And I think you've seen the Braves bats do a good job of that in recent weeks. But this is a big game. Going back to your point, a big game tonight to kind of set the tone. First meeting between the two teams. Fried on the mound. You feel like he's turned the corner. You feel like the last couple of times out, you've seen the Max Fried we expected to see. But I think just from a mindset standpoint, just from a confidence standpoint, and Ben, you've been in locker rooms, obviously, but look, the Braves know that they're not where they thought they were going to be at the start of the year. You didn't expect to be a couple of games under 500, and this is a chance to get right, to play a little better at home. The Braves haven't been great at home. Play a little better at home and make a statement against the Mets.
Yeah, you would hope that Fried will come out and play with confidence. I think the thing about this Braves team is, I mean, every single game, you're going to learn a lot about this team. I mean, can you put all 3 phases together? Can you put the starting pitching? Can you put the lineup? Can you put the bullpen together? It seems to be you have really, really good outings on this side, and then another bad outing on that side, but I'm not going to nitpick. I mean, they won 2 out of 3. They did what they need to do against the Brewers. They're moving on to the Mets. And I think what happens is BJ and Kevin, they seem to play better against better competition. I don't know why, and hopefully they'll stick to their winning ways because, like I said, I'm trying to stay away from the BJ isms, but every game does matter, and it's going to come down to 1 or 2 games at the end of the season. Maybe you look back at games like this to where you don't got some of the Mets' best pitchers out there on the mound. You're going to want to take advantage of it, but then forget, pitching is just one aspect. The Mets are good as a team. We'll see what happens tonight, but hopefully this lineup can keep some pressure, on those Mets pitchers all game.
Certainly. Again, I think this is a team that is, still in transition. William Contreras has played much better offensively than I think people expected. Defensively, got a little ways to go. Tyler Flowers not able to go or calling it a career maybe changes things up. I worry about the William Contreras. Do you get a good 50-game burst and then you kind of get that season arc of starting to catch a lot of games, starting to play maybe a little more baseball at this level than maybe you ever have, and you see a little waning of that. I know they went out and got Jonathan Lucroy maybe to help out with that. So I think there's still some storylines to watch here with this Braves team about how they've turned it around because, again, this is a team that now knows that Mike Soroka not coming back anytime soon. Travis d'Arnaud probably not coming back anytime soon. You've got some key pieces that have been unavailable for large portions, if not the whole time, here in 2021. And that you can't say that doesn't make a difference in the outlook that you have for your team when you're missing, at the very least, 1/5 of your rotation for the entirety of the season. Max Fried missed some time. It's tough to go out there and get momentum. And I think you're seeing that with the Braves through the first month plus. And then when they've kind of settled in, see a little bit more consistency coming to the lineup here. So I hope that's where we're seeing this trend go. And now that hey, d'Arnaud's out, Contreras, it's your gig. You see a little consistency there. I think of the outfield, you've kind of shuffled around looking, but it seems like when Heredia is back, he kind of does okay. So maybe you're settling in there at center field. And if you can do that, baseball, as BJ and Bennett's all about consistency and momentum. And if you can keep the same lineup rolling for the most part, day after day after day, you're going to win a lot of baseball games. So I think that's what we kind of hope to see from this Braves team moving forward. And again, they'll have the Mets tonight coming your way, 5:55. We will have pregame coverage. We'll come back, big weekend, rookie mini camps, all the rage, and then folks flipping out about Travis Etienne, Kyle Pitts, what they might be able to do. We'll get to that next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here on 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Also live on ESPNCoastal.com, live streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And you can hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. Rookie mini camps, Ben's favorite time of the calendar year. No? Was not your favorite time? Rookie mini camps happening this week, and everybody in Jacksonville been talking about Travis Etienne because at an all-important rookie mini camp, he was working out at wide receiver.
Well, I mean, if you you got to put that in context or quotations, Kevin, yes, he was working on a wide receiver because your franchise quarterback, the future of this organization, is on a pitch count. Why? Because people forget he's coming off of surgery and they want to make sure that he's fine. Travis Etienne is going to play running back BJ. I haven't talked to Urban. I haven't talked to any of his sources, but he's going to play running. Him and James Robinson are going to play running back, but it's a rookie mini camp, and you just want to be able to get through it. I remember my rookie mini camp, and all I remember is this. What are you doing? I mean, we just told you what to do. And then my offensive coordinator said, so you want us to call to play like, trips right, H left, a half black slow screen left, B, and make sure you block the center. Make sure you block the end. Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to tell you what you got. But no, I knew it was going to be a lot. Everybody was talking, Travis Etienne is playing wide. And now there's a lot of downtime. Not a lot of news, not a lot of controversy. Any little thing people are going to be up in arms about. God forbid a guy who BJ, really came along the last 2 years as far as like catching the ball out the backfield for Clemson. God forbid they utilize him. What is this NFL comparison with Alvin Kamara, Reggie Bush? Well, go look at this. I think Alvin Kamara, since he came into the league, has more catches than any receiver that got drafted with him or after him. So it's not like this guy can't be productive. He just doesn't talk. He cut his dreads off. He's still the same. Travis Etienne, I think it's much ado about nothing. But once again, we're going to keep talking about Jacksonville, because Tim Tebow hasn't got to town yet. So running backs playing wide receiver seems to be, front page news in the sports section.
Yeah, look, he's a running back, of course. We know that, and is one of the best running backs in college football history. But I also think it's important, and you kind of reference this, to understand and appreciate that the role of the running back in today's college football and NFL is not just line up and run it 20 times up the middle. And Etienne helped Clemson win championships because of his ability as a pass catcher. He had 48 receptions last year. 48 catches. And when you look at his projection, I think Alvin Kamara, I think that's a fair kind of expectation's a tough word because Kamara is one of the best to do it, but that's a fair kind of hope is that, hey, he could have a Kamara type impact on your offense. And Kevin mentioned this, right after the draft. Not only does that make your offense better, but having a playmaker that you can throw short passes to makes your quarterback better, the guy you're building your franchise around. And, you go back, Reggie Bush is interesting and Bush had better special teams production than Etienne in college. But in terms of their offensive impact, I think those are guys that were very similar in college. Travis Etienne at Clemson, Reggie Bush at SC. Reggie Bush's rookie year in the NFL, he had 88 catches. He had 88 catches. And I'm not saying that's going to be the standard for Etienne, but I think if people are looking at Travis Etienne going, oh, well, he's only going to get 12 to 15 carries a game after Robinson, that's not the totality of what Meyer wants him for. I think you're going to see Etienne. You mentioned Kamara. He had 83 catches last year. 83. And again, I'm not saying that's going to be the standard for Etienne, but can Etienne catch 5-6 passes a game for certain stretches? Yes. Can that make your offense dramatically better? Yes. Is that worth a first-round pick when you're trying to develop Trevor Lawrence? Yes, absolutely. And I think you're going to see Etienne used in a variety of different ways. But, Kevin, you're right. Yeah, people going crazy because of what happens in it's rookie mini camp. Come on.
Yeah, I understand everybody's like, oh, you're going to have James Robinson. Yes, you got Etienne because you also have James Robinson. The NFL, we've talked this time and time, two-back league, especially with a 17th game now added on to the schedule. I think that's just part of the new age of running back. You look at what the Falcons have with Devonta Freeman and some of the change of pace guys. You need a guy that can come out and catch a pass out of the backfield every once in a while. Does that mean, Travis Etienne's going to catch 14 balls a game? No, but I think you work on that aspect. If I'm Urban Meyer, the last thing I'm worried about is Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence getting on the same page as far as how they like to hand the ball off. They got it. They're good. Just tell them where the play is. They got that. Do I want to make sure I'm competent in the receiving game with my top pick? Yes, absolutely, because I think he can be a dynamic playmaker. So yeah, I saw the people on Twitter like freaking out that, oh, they're working him out at wide receiver. What a farce. It's like, do you guys not pay attention to NFL football in the last 5-6 years? It's like, come on. You're overreacting over nothing here, Ben. I mean, it's your first round draft pick. You're trying to figure out ways to get him the ball. And I do think this is a far cry, Ben, from the O-Dub experiment when you went out and got the quarterback from Michigan.
Denard Robinson.
That was, I think this is totally different situation where you're not taking a guy and saying, we're just trying to get him the ball. No, you're taking a guy that's comfortable doing one thing and polishing him up in another area where he can also be effective. I don't see what all the hullabaloo was about over the weekend.
It's about touches. I mean that's the new thing, right? Like, it's not so. I mean, we've seen a lot of different ways to use a running back. You had the bell cow running backs to where they're going to run the whole offense through him, give him 30, 40, carries a game. Now it's about touches. I mean, BJ, you talk about Alvin Kamara. It's the same Alvin Kamara who on Christmas Day, who had on the Grinch, cleats, had 6 touchdowns rushing. I'm just saying, the thing about Travis Etienne is he's almost too good for his own good because he don't need as many touches as everybody else to be productive. I mean, BJ, we said this. He is the greatest ACC running back of all time, and he never got featured. They never featured him. Travis Etienne could have put up bad QB numbers. I mean, as far as like rushing numbers, I mean, if they would have just featured him, I just think what happens is, I will say this. Urban Meyer has 2008 Florida fever. He got his quarterback, right? In Trevor Lawrence. He got a Travis Etienne who can catch the ball in the back, catch the ball as well as run. That goes Percy Harvin, right? Leave that stuff alone, Urban. I know what he's trying to do. And then the one that's supposed to bring it all together is Tim Tebow. But no, I do think it's much ado about nothing, BJ. But it just shows the impact of a head coach, a generational talent at quarterback, and a team that desperately needs, like some level of culture or stability. We're gonna be here. This wouldn't have been news at all if Blake Bortles was still the quarterback in Jacksonville. But because of everything is changing, a running back in the first round who's playing receiver is big news now.
Yeah, but I agree with Kevin. I don't understand why this is interpreted poorly. Like to me, if you have an offensive playmaker that can do a number of different things, that's a good thing. That's an asset. That's not a concern. I think if you're seeing Travis Etienne used a variety of different ways, that's reflective of his playmaking ability. And just for frame of reference, so people understand, because I think in some ways you're getting sort of potentially 2 players in one with Etienne. The last 2 years at Clemson, Travis Etienne had the same number of catches that George Pickens had the last 2 years at Georgia. And Pickens is a guy, if he's healthy, who's going to be a first-round pick. So you're getting a guy that can obviously be a lead running back if he needs to, but can also operate as kind of the go-to option in the passing game too. So I'm with Kevin. I don't get the criticism. I think it's exciting to think about Etienne's role.
Yeah, then you look at the Falcons, got to see Kyle Pitts up close and personal, and obviously, when you see Kyle Pitts out there, Ben and BJ, everybody's mind just starts what happens when you get to do this and that and all the weapons, and you put Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley on the same side of the field, and how do you cover them? I mean, Ben, obviously this has got to be good if you're Arthur Smith looking at this going, oh, I knew we were going to be pretty good offensively potentially, but now I do have Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley and maybe Hayden Hurst all capable of getting on the same side of the field, and somebody's got to pick and choose what they're going to do. I imagine Falcons fans should be very excited about the early look at Kyle Pitts. Again, rookie minicamp, but at what he can do.
Oh yeah, you got to be saying to yourself, this is what you see when you have. This is where you see how you're gonna fit in the confines of the offense. Right now, everybody's looking good as rookies against rookies. But I do think when you talk about a guy like Kyle Pitts, you can't coach 6'6". You can't coach 4.4 speed. You can't coach the longest wingspan of any tight end in NFL history. You can't coach a catch radius. And that's before you start talking about Ridley and Gage and Julio and Hurst. So I do think that when you look at what this guy can bring to the table, he's going to help in the red zone, in the money zone. Between the 20s, Atlanta is very, 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 very deadly. From the 20-yard line in, that's when they start stalling with Julio. So when you're talking about people saying, look, what if all Kyle Pitts do is catch touchdowns? Well, that's all they said about Michael Irvin. How did his career end up? I'm just saying, when you look at what these guys do, big play Michael Irvin, I just think that when you look at BJ, what potentially a Kyle Pitts can do, it's scary because he adds a new dimension to your offense from the tight end position. The last time Matty Ice, when he was the most effective, even though he didn't win the MVP, is when he had Roddy White on the outside, Julio on the other side, guy by the name of Tony Gonzalez at tight end. When they asked Kyle Pitts who your favorite tight end of all time, I don't know if this was scripted or not. He's Tony Gonzalez. So he's right on cue. Tony Gonzalez wore 88. He's wearing number 8. I don't know if that's inspired by Kobe or not, but I just think that when you are offensive coordinator, if you can't find a way to utilize 6'6", 4'4" speed, you shouldn't be in the National Football League calling plays.
Well, I think the key point is red zone usage. And I think Christian was talking about this pre-draft about taking a very good offense and making it elite. And Ben, what you referenced, Atlanta, between the 20s, excellent. Sometimes once you got in the red zone, struggled to score touchdowns. Well, Atlanta was 26th in the NFL in red zone touchdown percentage last year. And that's with, a couple of Hall of Famers potentially on your offense. So I think that's the expectation for Pitts. It's not necessarily just, hey, get the big, 100-yard games or have 10 catches. It's when we have a 3rd and goal from the 9-yard line, are you the guy that can, find a seam in coverage and get us a touchdown? I think that's what's exciting when you think about Kyle Pitts.
And again, Falcons fans going to get more and more up-close looks at number 8 coming up here in the coming weeks and days. We've got more to come here on 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We are streaming live at ESPNCoastal.com. Good to have you along here on this Monday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, thanks for being with us here on the show. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We are also streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. And you can see us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. As we look ahead to the college football season, looking at rookie mini camps going on. Obviously, a lot of these guys we talk about had breakout seasons. Who are the breakout guys you think we're going to see here in 2021 in the SEC? Guys that, we're going to be talking about midseason, just all about here in college football come midseason.
Yeah, I think some of these guys that all of us are going to mention are already kind of standouts, but maybe not fully recognized and appreciated around the country as stars. The guy that comes to mind for me is Arkansas wide receiver Treylon Burks. And this is a guy that had a huge finish to the season. You go back to his game, Arkansas's game against Mizzou, 10 catches, 206 yards, and a touchdown. You even go back to the Dog fans may remember this. The first game of the year had over 100 yards and a touchdown against Georgia. Had a couple of touchdowns against Texas A&M. Was in the 90 to 100 yard range a couple of times. Over 16 yards per carry, and that's what I like about playmakers, wide receivers, is when they can really stretch the field, really pressure an opposing defense. And I think Arkansas, I was a little higher on the Hogs than some people were a year ago. I think they're going to be better than people think in 2021 as well. And I think from the standpoint of playmakers, I think Treylon Burks, one of the best in the country. Yes, one of the best wide receivers in the country. And I think you will see him talked about around college football more this season.
I mean, for me, BJ, you talk about guys in the SEC who don't get enough clout for what they did last year based off the team. I'd say it's Kevin Harris. I mean, when you look at 1,300 yards, it's not easy to do in the SEC, but because the team, it was all last year was all about, who was opting out, who was deciding to not opt out. But you look at what Kevin Harris was able to do, he was that whole offense. I mean, and I just think that he's going to be a guy that 3-4 games to the season, you're going to be talking. His production last year coming to play this year when people start really, jumping on the bandwagon of how good of a player he can be. But another name that shouldn't surprise SEC fans, just maybe in the SEC West, B.J. Ogilard, the brother of Azeez Ogilard out there in LSU. I think 4 or 5 sacks as a freshman last year. He's going to have to be – B.J., you talking about, what Durante Smith going to have to be able to do as a defensive coordinator to be able to get that to get those guys going. I think BJ going to have to be a big part of that. And BJ, you knew I was going to do this. I mean, I ain't had a chance to put put them shoes on. I got to get them on tight. No, I think, listen, when I think about Florida though, I mean, I got to show them some love. I mean, Javon Dexter, former 5-star defensive tackle, he's going to have to step up this year, even with Zachary Carter coming back and Brandon Cox coming back and Moon and those guys. He's a guy that number one, he's a 5-star that didn't go to Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, or Clemson. He actually went to Florida. I think he has big-time potential. I think he's a young man. I remember him at the Army All-American game. I'm really, creating a bunch of havoc. I think that when you think about Gary, Gary that came out of Michigan a couple of years back. The game kind of remind me of his, real fluid to be as big as he is, but I think he's going to be a guy that's, number one, going to become really, really good, really, really fast. But for that Georgia defense, he's going to have to, because I just don't see the other big names around him being as big of a contributor, I think, as far as like the potential he has. Yeah,
I think Ben kind of took mine. I was going to say Kevin Harris. I was, 1,300 yards, nothing to sneeze at, but I think you kind of, we say it's a star that people are going to be raving about come midseason. I mean, South Carolina had a forgettable 2020, and again, with opt-outs and just their record in general, it was kind of an under-the-radar situation where the dude led the SEC in rushing, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, and it was – you just didn't hear much about it, in 2020. I think come 2021, if he comes out with some big performances in some big ball games, if he has a nice performance against Georgia or comes out and has a good game on the ground against Florida, I think you'll start to see that momentum pick up for him at South Carolina, because he was fantastic a season ago, and you feel like he was one of the guys whose performances kind of got lost in the fact that South Carolina was one of those teams that was kind of rolling along, did not have a great season. Will Muschamp gets fired. Then a lot of your key players decide to opt out the remainder of the season. And it was kind of like you had 10 other kind of big stories other than what he was doing on the field. And I think here in 2021, he'll have a chance to have that spotlight and very well could lead the SEC in rushing again, BJ, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, should be getting preseason All-American attention. You guys are right. He was extraordinary a year ago. Kevin Harris, he did lead the SEC, Kevin, in yards per game at over 113 yards per game and averaged over 6 yards a carry, 6.15 yards per carry. So he was elite in every way. I'm with you guys. He's got to be talked about as one of the best running backs in the country. Defensively, Ben, I know you had a couple of guys. I like Owen Papo at Auburn, the linebacker, had close to 100 tackles last year, the former 5-star recruit. I think now he moves into that All-American type role where people start talking about him as one of the best linebackers in the country. But I wanted to get your thoughts because this is somebody we talked about in the show meeting, Ben, kind of expectations-wise. I think Emory Jones, Florida's quarterback, is going to have a big year. And I've said it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I know a lot of people disagree with me. I think Florida is going to be a lot better than people are saying. To me, to talk about Florida, what some of our guests have even said they may not even be the second best team in the East. I find that to be really off the mark. I think Jones is going to be a really good quarterback. We've seen Dan Mullen. He has a great track record of developing quarterbacks. In your mind, what's kind of a fair expectation for Jones for this fall?
I think BJ. This is not far-fetched. I'm just saying, Dak Prescott, what Dak was able to do at Mississippi State, similar type game. I'm not saying maybe not with the passing yards, but BJ, think about this. He's the first quarterback that actually got recruited by Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen inheriting Felipe Franks, and you see what he did with Kyle Trask, and he need those guys to be willing runners. Well, I think Emory Jones is a bona fide dual threat. It's been 4 years ago now? The number one dual threat quarterback in the country was Justin Fields. The number two was Emory Jones. He was the number 2 dual threat quarterback coming out that year. And it's funny. Here I am always talking about, I don't care what school these guys go to. Somebody goes to Emory Jones press conference in about 10 minutes. I'm sitting there looking. Don't even know how Emory Jones look. And then he going to Florida. I think, BJ, when you look at what he brings to the table, 250 yards passing, right at 100 yards rushing the game is not far-fetched. And he's going to be an extension of the running game. You're going to have to be able to protect him as far as like those called runs. But he adds a new dimension because now when you talk about RPOs, run pass option, if he pulls it, he got wheels. It's not like, listen, Felipe Franks had a 70-yard run against Texas A&M, in the swamp. And that's the longest run from scrimmage ever from a quarterback. I like Felipe. Love the fact that he got picked up as a free agent by the Maytown Down Falcons. But I just think Emory Jones is what Dan Mullen can get the most out of. Kyle Trask is a pocket passer. He's not a runner. Felipe Franks got a big arm, and he was a willing runner. I think Emory Jones got a big arm, and he got wheels. I think you can see those Dak Prescott type numbers because he does have weapons. Now, he's going to have to prove it, but I think Emory Jones he didn't get in the transfer portal. He learned behind Felipe, learned behind Kyle Trask, been in that system going on 4 years now. I think the young man is, poised to have a nice breakout year.
Yeah, again, SEC, if you show out, you're going to become a star pretty quickly, right? In the SEC, I think Emory Jones is going to be one of those guys. It all depends on how he comes out the gate. If it's like Kyle Trask, he's going to get a lot of national run for what Dan Mullen is doing with him. If he kind of has some so-so ball games, I think you'll see it more along the lines of how we talked about JT Daniels last year, which is eminently talented, but hasn't played, consistently game in and game out. I think JT Daniels could be one of those guys where people talk about him as what could be. And if Georgia comes out, and again, if Clemson and Florida are kind of their 2 games in the regular season, if he plays well in those 2 games and can play up to a level against competition they should beat, I think you'll really hear a lot of people talking about JT Daniels, nationally and what he's doing at quarterback. But you play poorly in week 1 and lose to Clemson out of the gate, I think that goes by the wayside real quick for him.
And I think a lot of what we see out of the quarterbacks kind of depends on what we see out of the playmakers surrounding the quarterbacks. I know Brooks Austin has talked a lot about Burton and his ability, with Pickens out to kind of emerge as that go-to number 1 receiver. And I'm with you, Kevin. I think JT Daniels, we were talking about some of the production recently. I think JT Daniels has a chance to be one of those first quarterbacks talked about around the country. When you look at Florida, I think everybody talks about the playmakers you lose, and I understand that, but Jacob Copeland, is he a guy that's been ready to emerge as a number 1 receiver and kind of could contend for all SEC honors. So I think when you look around college football, I mean, you want to talk about a guy that's about to be a superstar. Look at the track record. John Mechie is going to be a superstar at Alabama. Look at the track record. He's the next in line. But I think, whether it's a Treylon Burks, like I mentioned at Arkansas, I think we talk about the quarterbacks, obviously, and understandably around the SEC, but look at the playmakers as well, because their progression obviously goes hand in hand.
I mean, one thing I do know this year, I mean, the 2022 draft is going to be headlined by defensive players. You didn't really see this. I mean, 2021, it was all about the quarterbacks, the receivers, the running backs. BJ, obviously he's not going to be a star because Derek Stingley Jr., people ain't heard from him since his freshman year because of what didn't happen last year. I think you're going to have a lot of big-time talented players on the defensive side of the ball. And like I said, you're going to have the usual suspects because of the teams that they play for and the conference that they play in. But I'm just looking for a guy that's not even on the radar at all that's going to end up being a household name towards the end of the year.
Hey, and again, we'll see who those guys become. Every year there's a guy that kind of comes out of the blue to surprise. We've got more to come here on 3 and Out, including we will try to explain something that's weird coming up here in the world of sports. We'll do that next. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here with you on this Monday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben here on 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, And little did you know, maybe you did, there's a new NBA playoff format starting this week where it's not just the top 8 teams. Now 9 and 10 get a crack at it. It's a little convoluted. So, BJ, go ahead. Explain it to everybody how this Explain it to everybody how this works. No, it is. It is kind of an interesting scenario, though, for the NBA, where you now have, I guess, expanded the playoffs, but maybe you haven't really. So 7 and 8 are in the kind of play-in tournament, right, against seeds 9 and 10, who normally wouldn't be in. Now, they're going to play, I think, 7 plays 10, 8 plays 9. If 7 or 8 win one game, they're in the playoffs. If 9 and 10 win 2 games in a row, they're in the playoffs, and the lower seed is eliminated. So basically, it's like a best of 3, except one team only has to win 1, and another team has to win 2 in a row for it to actually count. So NBA thinking outside the box, I give them an A, but it seems like they overthought this one a little bit.
Yeah, I was looking at the actual bracket, like and it's hard to follow. There's a lot of arrows and parentheses in terms of this could happen or that could happen. It's a little perplexing to me. It's a little confusing to me, if I'm being honest.
I mean, the whole thing about it is this. I mean, when the schedule makers come out, the odds makers come out, they're looking around saying, okay, who has a really, really good shot of being, the 8, 9. The 7, 8, 9, and 10. Well, Steph, if you've seen Golden State this year, Steph has been their end-all be-all. I think he's won the scoring title, averaging like 32 points a game. I mean, BJ, this could get interesting. I mean, LeBron finally got some time off. He was off, he was out for 6 weeks, came back and was out for 6 more weeks. It's gonna be the Lakers versus Golden State. LeBron just cannot get away from Steph Curry and them Golden State Warriors, but LeBron's like, look, bring them on. Yeah, because you only got to win one game.
Apparently, we have our esteemed producer wanting to weigh in here. He's the one that tried to explain it to me, so I'm sure the reason he wants to hop on here is we've all screwed this up. So where are we wrong here, Christian?
All right, I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible for you. 7 is playing 8, 9 is playing 10. 7 and 8, they just have to win once. If they lose in that game, they will go on to play the winner of 9 and 10. What does that mean? If you are the 9th or the 10th seed, you have to win your 9-10 game, and then you have to win another game. So if you're 7 or 8, you just have to win once. If you're 9 or 10, you have to win twice.
And so okay. 7 plays 8, 9 plays 10. This stuff is crazy. I mean, okay.
So kind of a weird elimination bracket as we're looking at it here. I totally misexplained that then.
I left the studio for 30 seconds, so you guys set it on fire.
That's usually what happens.
Well,
I mean, math, play 7 and 8, 9 and 10. All I'm saying is LeBron, I did get it right. So LeBron, they are playing Steph and those guys, right? They 7 and 8?
Yes, but even if they lose to Steph, they'll still have another chance to probably play Memphis or San Antonio, and they just have to beat them in that one. If they go 1-1, they're in.
So this is about Popovich, getting into the playoffs.
I hope we can keep this all straight. I'm now thoroughly confused. Christian, we appreciate it. We'll come back. Hour 2, take 3 around the corner. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We are streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. Welcome back. Hour 2 of 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. A lot to get to here this hour, including looking at the upcoming Sun Belt season that's coming in college football. Could this be one of the deepest years we've seen in the Sun Belt? And what does that mean for Georgia Southern and others looking ahead to 2021? We'll get to that and more. But first, let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. All right, fellas, today is Matt Ryan's birthday. Is he the greatest player in Falcons history?
I'm going to say Deion Sanders, and I know in the show meeting, Kevin, you were saying, well, look, he spent a significant amount of his career with Dallas. I believe he only played 1 year with San Francisco. People talk about Deion and the 49ers, but was drafted, of course, by Atlanta in the top 5. Was an All-Pro for multiple years for the Falcons at multiple different positions, not only corner but also as a return specialist. I didn't know this. Scored 10 touchdowns in 5 years. For the Falcons. So you're talking about a guy not even playing offense, getting in the end zone a lot. I just think, Ben, we went to the game, right? And they had, Deion kind of introduce the team. When we went to the Falcons game a couple of years ago, they had like a pre-recorded video with him. I just think, Matt Ryan, maybe he's a Hall of Famer. We'll have to wait and see. But for me, I just think Deion Sanders, even though some people will say Deion and say Dallas, I think most people will still say Deion in Atlanta. So I'll say Deion Sanders. But, you can make an argument for Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Mike Vick, Tommy Nobis, Jesse Tuggle, a lot of guys you could think about.
For me, it is Mike Vick. Obviously, BJ, as you mentioned, when we were there to see Deion come up on that little round screen, Matty Ice took it to another level. I'm just thinking about just influence and what one guy did for the organization. No, Mike Vick didn't win a regular season MVP. No, Mike Vick didn't go to a Super Bowl. He lost to those Eagles when in 2004. But I'm just thinking about what Michael Vick meant to the team, meant to the city, just his impact on the league and what all everybody was thinking, Mike Vick, he's from Atlanta, right? He is not. You sure he ain't from? No, he's from Virginia. And what Mike Vick meant to that organization, to have the number 1 overall pick to get a guy who, in my opinion, was the biggest project in the draft, but what he was able to go out there and do, I don't think he ever lived up to his full potential of what he could ultimately be. But I just think that when I think about Atlanta, people go, if I think about the Braves, Chipper Jones. Mm-hmm. Oh, when I think about the Hogs, Dominique. Mm-hmm. When I hear the fire, Mike Vick. It just comes out. I remember when Mike Vick had Nike Town and all this kind of stuff. I love Prime. I love Matty Ice, tugging those guys. But for me, Jamal Anderson. But for me, I think it's Mike Vick.
Well, to me, it comes down to who is the most popular player versus who is the greatest player that the Falcons have had. This is a franchise that never had back-to-back winning seasons. They were known for being losers, throughout their entirety of their existence there in Atlanta, save the blip to go to the Super Bowl against John Elway and the Broncos that they made. And then even with Michael Vick, never had back-to-back 5-0 winning seasons. I think Michael Vick had a winning season, then 500 the next year, but never had back-to-back above 500 winning seasons. Matt Ryan did that a lot. Took them to a Super Bowl. I think if you're talking about the greatest Falcon, he is up there for me in the discussion, probably at number 1. If you throw in his accomplishments in terms of yardage, I think he's been like the fastest to a lot of yardage milestones in the National Football League. He's got an MVP. He's got a Super Bowl appearance to his name, which is more than you could say about 99% of the Atlanta Falcons out there. In terms of impact, okay, I could argue Mike Vick's probably better on that list. Yeah, you could argue Deion certainly better on that list. Jesse Tuggle and other guys who have been mainstays. But as far as like the greatest player the Falcons have had, he's got the longevity, the achievements, the accolades, and more to me put him at the top of that list. Moving along. I guess I feel like I got the final word on that.
Hey, listen. That was a beautiful dissertation on Matty.
Moving along. He owes me $20 for that. Moving along, who would be scarier to face in a one-game scenario, which we were just talking about there at the end of the hour, where you play one game, 7 versus 8. The winner moves on to the playoffs. The loser has to play the winner of the 9-10 game for their playoff lives. But who would be scarier to face, LeBron or Steph in a one-game scenario?
Yeah, both impossible matchups, and the way Steph's playing right now. But I think it's LeBron, because I think, at least in theory, and again, you're talking about two of the greatest to ever do it, but I think at least in theory, LeBron could beat you in more ways, maybe, could beat your team. Whereas, LeBron obviously can shoot, not like Steph, but he can shoot. He can attack the basket in a way that cannot be stopped. He obviously is very comfortable being a point forward, so to speak, and kind of moving the ball around. And then I think if he needs to, he can beat you defensively. Whereas maybe that's not necessarily kind of Steph's game always. I think LeBron James, if I have a guy on my team that's averaging 25 that I need to get 25 for us to win, I think LeBron could match up with that player and be extremely effective defensively. So the physicality of LeBron on offense, defense, impacts the game, obviously, with points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, the proficiency totals. And again, Steph is right up there as well. But for me, I think if I have a team and I want to win in the postseason, the player that I do not want to see, because he's an impossible matchup, is LeBron James.
I mean, the thing about it is this. I mean, wow, you're talking about best versus the best. The reason why I would go a slight edge to LeBron over Steph, even though Steph is playing incredible this year, is I've never seen Steph deliver in the playoffs the way LeBron has. Like Steph is incredible. I mean, averaging 32 points a game, but LeBron is so impactful without having the ball in his hand. Steph is impactful when he has the ball in his hand. You can't stop him. I mean, his range is one or two steps past half court. He can put it in the bucket. But the thing about LeBron, defensively, offensively, rebounds, assists, just understanding what the situation is, have literally seen it all, done it all, and literally faced them all. Steph, regular season, I would go Steph. But when it counts the most, I got to go with LeBron, because I've never seen Steph come up big when it matters the most in a do or die situation. And the regular season, Steph is incredible. I think pressure for Steph is a little bit, he feels it more in these type of situations than LeBron has, because LeBron thrives, in pressure, and he applies it. So because I've seen LeBron do it more often than not, I'll pick LeBron over Steph in this scenario.
I think it's LeBron just from the physical standpoint. I mean, I'm not doubting either one of their skills, but to me, LeBron's a bigger physical matchup or mismatch for me to try to defend than Steph Curry, where, hey, go body LeBron. Well, I'm a big and he moves like a guard. Okay, we'll put somebody small. Well, I'm a guard and he's twice my size. To me, it's just a physical mismatch on how you do that in a one-game scenario. Both those guys can take over the games in a one-game setting, which to me would make me very nervous about what's to come here in the playoffs. But yeah, to me, it's still LeBron James at this point. All right, moving on to even more fun stuff. Nintendo just announced Mario Golf Super Rush coming out, so it got us to thinking about sports games. What is the most fun sports game ever? Not the best game, just the most fun sports game ever.
All right, this is the best way I know to kind of sum this up. Is when I was a kid, when I was in grade school, elementary school, I could sit with my buddies and play Mario Kart all weekend, for multiple days at a time. Like, you go in the summer on a Thursday, you come out on a Monday, and you have no idea where the weekend went, where the time went. Mario Kart is consuming, and it never gets stale. It never gets old. It's always unpredictable. The characters, the levels, I can do that now at my age, just as I was able to do it, 25, 30 years ago. That's the power of Mario Kart is, I'll play Mario Kart with my kids now, and I can get lost for hours playing Mario Kart. Mario Kart is timeless. It's classic. And now, with the, I guess, newer versions, you can, change your wheels out, change you have unlimited designs. I mean, Mario Kart is so much fun. And what's amazing is sometimes, Kevin, video games, I don't think you're a huge video game person, Kevin. Some games are kind of addictive for different reasons, right? Like, oh, I want to beat this level, or I want to play with my buddies. Mario Kart has always just kept it simple. It's like, this is what we do. We're going to race each other. You can shoot the shells and all like that. And the basic format has stayed the same through the decades, and it's still just as fun. just as appealing, just as captivating. So I love Mario Kart. Shout out to Mario Kart, one of the greatest games ever.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to beat Mario Kart for the simple fact that, Mario Kart, I mean, one, you go from wanting to win to I'm just going to make sure he doesn't beat me. I don't care what's going to happen. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna be shooting Kevin for the whole. Forget what place I get, but for me, it's NBA Jam, man. I mean, because the thing is, number one, NBA Jam is where everybody learned to first really start trash talking. Because when you start, he's heating up, and then once you know you can't be beat, you looking at your opponent while you dunking on them. And I just think that for those, once again, our kids will be thinking NBA Jam. What kind of console is this? Like, please be quiet and be respectful. There will be no PS4s and 12s and whatever the world they got now without Nintendo. But yeah, I used to love NBA Jam because I mean when the ball is literally on fire. I mean like burning up the nets and all these different guys can jump 100 feet in the air. I mean these are the best alleys you ever seen. I mean Mario Kart does bring back a lot of good memories. When I first got to Florida. Used to hear you all throughout the middle of the night. You cheated me. You what? I mean, you hear guys literally finna fight because you getting ready to go through the fence line. Somebody will blow you up right there at the end. Mario Kart won, but 1B, I would definitely go NBA Jam.
Yeah, Detlef Shrimp, Sean Kemp, and Gary Payton. Payton are unbeatable at the NBA Jam. That's the team. If you're talking NBA Jam, you get the Seattle Supersonics have never.
Hold on a second, Kev. I gotta ask Ben this. Ben, did you ever play with your own character on Madden? Like play with yourself, where you go and you get the Titans, and hey, here's Ben Troop. I'm throwing passes to Ben Troop on Madden.
Of course. I mean, and the thing is, right? Like the final score would be like 38 to 17, but I'll have 26 catches. But because at a certain point, I just start throwing pick after pick after pick, because they're just rolling the coverage to my side. But I will say, when you got yourself in the game and you playing, you're not taking it that serious and things of that nature. But then you going out and about and people saying, "Hey man, you messed up my fantasy team." What? I mean, I'm just saying, dude, you dropping the pass on 3rd and 10. I'm like, I didn't drop a pass, sir. I'm trying to get something to eat. I don't know. But no, I mean, that kind of stuff is fun because that's the new thing is, did you play or what games you was on? Things of that nature. But yeah, BJ, I mean, Gus Scott little brother. Gus Scott had a little brother named Boogie. He had a little brother named Boo. Me and Boo got the same birthday. I remember way back in the early 2000s, Boo would do creative player. Boo would have a receiver that's 7'2", right? He can run a 4.21. And I'm like, dude, you go just and then Calvin Johnson comes out. And Calvin Johnson wasn't 7'2", but I just think that being able to have yourself in the game is always humbling.
Whoa.
Could you
Cody's saying we were in the 80s?
How would y'all handle that?
Go ahead, BJ.
I was gonna say Cody just sent a message that said your player rating in Madden was in the 80s. That's pretty good.
All I'm gonna say is this: I had. It's not like it is now, BJ, to where you can influence them. They show up to the practice. You're like, man, I need to. That's what they said. They saw you, boy. They gave you, boy. Look, 83 in 06. A little razzle down. I listen, 83 in the game, 84 in your heart. You know what it was.
I was gonna say, I think in listening to that story. Ben's like, hey, when I played Madden, we would lose 37-7, but I had 24 catches. It sounded like Ben.
The highest you could be.
The original Jameis Winston. I was balling 24 catches, but your team lost. I had 24 catches.
Oh, yeah. Don't make no mistake about it, though, Kevin. Like, that's what you really want to say in the press conference. They be like, Ben, what happened? Listen, man, I had about 13 catches, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, but you guys lost. So why are you talking to me? I mean,
I was balling.
I mean, that kind of stuff is always humbling, too. We're not, and because NCAA is coming back out, we already talked about this as in the office. I'm gonna make sure I get one NCAA for the whole office. Y'all just divvy it up. I'm not getting nobody. If you said something negative about me getting meleeed against Kentucky, you will not be getting that. I mean, I'm just letting you. I mean, you're NCAA.
Who would say such a thing, especially on this show? Nothing but respect all the way around. No, I mean. Yeah, NBA Jam was legit. Christian put in his vote for NFL Blitz, where obviously rules didn't matter, and you just were out there trying to annihilate people at the end of the day. I could see where that would be fun for hours on end at the same time. But yeah, NBA Jam, you can play forever and ever. Mario Kart, literally now, if my kids are like, Dad, let's play Mario Kart, I'm good. Well, let's go. It's timeless. It never's I don't really want to play that anymore. No. and then they brought out the steering wheel. That just kicks it up a notch, where it really never gets old once you put that into play. That's take 3. We do it each every day. This time we'll come back. Much more to get to here on this Monday. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you along here, 3 and Out on this Monday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Glad to have you along all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. And again, we had rookie mini camps going on, and you get all kind of stuff happening where you kind of get to know the players. And Ben Cleveland, video of Ben Cleveland walking to mini camp. People are like calling him the Mountain from Game of Thrones, which I know, BJ, you weren't a Game of Thrones guy, or Ben. Just a huge human being. I think you said he's listed like 6'6", 340 pounds. Obviously, that is a mammoth human being. And then you obviously know, hey, he's got a little country in him. He was asking about eating squirrels, and he said, hey, he was homesick from school one day and didn't have any food, so he shot a couple of squirrels and cooked them up. I remember my college days. Didn't really go out looking for squirrels to have a little snack in the afternoon, but Ben Cleveland, a little different.
Big guy, 6'6", 350, you know, some reports online. I mean, Ben, who is the biggest player you ever went up against? Because I think about that, like how can anyone move him? Like at the line of scrimmage, how do you move Ben Cleveland? And did you ever go up against anybody that big?
I mean, Vince Wilfork was real big in high school. He didn't get his jersey until like the day of the game. But he was round. He wasn't tall. He was round. Man. I stood next to Jonathan Ogden when we played the Ravens, and people don't understand how I'm a tall guy, but 6'5" compared to 6'9". I mean, I was standing next to him, and he looked at me, and I didn't say anything until he said something first. Like I'm like, I don't want to make no sudden moves. I don't want to. He goes, "How you doing, young fella?" I'm like, "How you doing, Mr. Ogden?" He goes, "Call me Jonathan." I ain't say nothing. I'm like, "Look, I'm confused as to what to call you. I want to call you Mister. You said don't call you that, but." I mean, BJ, certain guys, man. I mean, Max Starks is the biggest. Like Max Starks is the biggest human being. Like he's just a really really nice guy. When guys are that big, people just I don't know. It's like they walk in rooms and people just stop talking. They're like, yeah, like like I don't know what they think these people are gonna do. Like don't look at them.
They're just large individuals.
But this is the thing though. It's almost like what do you like? I mean. You go to like a kindergarten class and you walk in, you're like, hi, little kids. They're like, what is he? That's a person. Like, no, that's, I'm just saying. And then you're talking about 6'6", 350, killing squirrels. For what? Like when you say, hey, man, I was hungry. So I ain't have no food. So you an NFL player. You ain't no supermarket.
No, he did this in college, apparently.
Pow, pow. I mean, I'm just saying, you got, okay, so this is the thing. His roommate, hopefully, he was living alone.
What do you do if you come home and your roommate's got a couple of squirrels like dangling over by the sink? He's like, "Hey, I'm just making a little snack." Like,
that's not for me. That's not for me.
I mean, in my mind, I mean, that's the first time. You walk out the room. No. You get on the phone. You call the head coach and say, "Hey, man, what? I need another roommate." Why? Because number one, right? The fact he's done this before. Like, okay, you gonna kill it, skin it, take all the fur off, take all the guts out, kill it. What did he deep fry? Did he put it in the stew? Did he saute it? There is something wrong. DJ, like I always saying, we all have built-in weirdness, but most of us will never know what it's stuff like this. I didn't have anything to eat, but you got a gun to shoot 2 squirrels? Yep. And I ate it. I mean, listen, Ben Cleveland.
I mean, at this point, who's to say that was the case? He didn't just go grab him with his bare hands and take care of it.
Oh yeah, just imagine. Like, what do you like? I mean, he grabbed a squirrel, and the squirrel like, and he bite it. I mean, BJ, I'm just saying, it's like certain things you shouldn't just say out loud. Hey Ben, man, you know what I'm saying? Talk about your college days. I'll tell you about the time I killed 2 squirrels, and all the reporters just started looking. Yeah, man, I was hungry, didn't have nothing to eat, so I went on campus, shot 2 squirrels, boop, boop, took them to the crib, skinned them. Ate them. I mean, BJ, if that's your roommate, can you tell him no? Can you say, Ben, be like, hey, man, what you got over there, Ben? I got some squirrel. You want some? You're going to eat some of this. Because I killed 2. One for me, one for you.
Oh, he would be the kind of guy's like, oh, this is delicious. Like, you want some of this? I mean, it's fantastic.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Was this thing that was like nibbling on the deck like 10 minutes ago? It's like, that's what we're doing?
Yeah, it's like I caught these 2 squirrels. I kept telling them, get away from this tree. They didn't want to get away from the tree. So I hit him with a pep. You know what I'm saying? I killed Chip and Dale. Got both of them. You know what I'm saying? They up in here with me. I've dealt with some weird stuff in my lifetime, people. I'm not saying that I'm not a part of the weird, pack, but nothing like that. Nothing like this. I'm a country boy. Love being from the country, but my countryness has a limit. I'm not eating
when you're
no
6'6",
squirrel.
340 though. How many squirrels you got to get to get full?
I mean, at least 2.
That's a good question. That's a good question. That's a fair question.
A squirrel is a very lean animal, so it ain't got a lot of meat on it. So where does the meat come from? Did he shoot him? Where he shot him at? In the leg? Wait. How did he kill him? I'm saying, BJ. I'm sorry. I'm finna have animal rights people calling my phone. I am not a fan of this by any means. I'm just saying, when you say you're on a meal plan, so we go, I ain't got nothing to eat. You ain't got nothing to eat. No.
Just walk outside. Nature will provide.
This must have been the off season, and whatever their dining place was closed, and he was broke. So he said, if I see them squirrels today, it's a wrap. I mean, BJ. I'm just saying, on the weird meter, BJ, 1 to 10, where does that rank?
I mean, look, that I like eating things that you don't necessarily like, that Kevin doesn't necessarily like. We all have different tastes. I'm just saying that's probably not for me. That's probably not for me.
Ben Cleveland coming to a Ravens offensive line near you.
Yeah. What happens when a squirrel gets on the field and they out there practicing? Like, I got him.
Ding, ding, break time.
Like, what did you got? Pow. Where that come from? Listen, we are weird people in this life, people, but Mr. Cleveland, you are the weirdest thus far. Nobody has topped this thus far. So, yeah.
Oh, man, we got more to come here on 3 and Out. We'll take a look at the Sun Belt coming up in 2021. Might it be the deepest we've seen the league, and could they make a push to be the top of the G5? We'll debate that when we return. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back. It's 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop, BJ Bennett. Glad you are with us all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network here on this Monday. Looking ahead to the college football season, BJ, I know we've talked a lot about the Sun Belt and what they've brought to the table college football-wise, but you have one of the top returning college football duos in 2021 in Grayson McCall and Isaiah Likely. You have a couple other teams, Louisiana and others, who are going to push to consistently be in the top 25. I mean, how good is this going to be? And could this be the deepest Sun Belt we've seen in quite some time?
It's going to be really good. It's going to be a good league, and that's no surprise to anybody who's been following it. But you think about the quarterbacks that are coming back. You think about the overall talent that's coming back, playmakers, line of scrimmage. It's going to be a really, really good league. Now, what's interesting is, you think about Coastal Carolina, obviously undefeated in the regular season, one of the stories of the year in all of college football, and they bring back superstar power, right? I mean, just to name a few guys, you have Grayson McCall, the quarterback, and Isaiah Likely, who I think ESPN had been as their preseason first-team All-American tight end for 2021. But I think Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, are going to be really good as well. And I've seen at least one or two preseason polls that have Louisiana ranked ahead of Coastal Carolina. Now, for me, I would probably go slight lean Coastal Carolina right now over Louisiana, but I think both of those teams deserve to be preseason top 20. I mean, at least, I mean, if not preseason top 15, when you think about what those teams accomplished last year, the standard they've set, the talent that's returning. I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice, right? When we look at college football teams and we say, okay, well, we're going to rank all the SEC teams, the ACC, the Big Ten, and then we don't rank the group of 5 schools until we get into the kind of the 20 to 25 range. No, Coastal Carolina was in the top 15 last year. Louisiana was in the top 20 last year. Ask BYU about Coastal Carolina. I mean, these are programs that have earned the benefit of the doubt of being a top 20, a top 15 team, theoretically contending for a spot in the New Year's Six. Hopefully one day an opportunity to get into a playoff format. I don't know that that's going to happen as currently constituted, but if we see more slots added, as has been speculated, I think that's a very real possibility. But when you look at the league, I think those two teams right now, and of course, Ben, Arkansas State's going to be good, Appalachian State's going to be good, Georgia Southern's going to be good. But I think when you look at the league right now, it probably starts with Coastal Carolina and Louisiana, with maybe App State right there too.
Yeah, and the thing is that, BJ, I think the reason why they'll put Louisiana over Coastal Carolina, they want to see if Coastal Carolina can be a usual suspect like Louisiana. It's usually what Louisiana and App State playing for the Sun Belt Championship. Coastal Carolina came out of nowhere last year. They had the season they had led by, Grayson McCall, and then obviously their great tight end Isaiah Likely. I think when you look at, the G5s, as a whole, and you start talking about why people don't play the Sun Belt, I mean, BYU said, all right, let's go to Conway. Let's go play them Coastal Carolina boys. They can't, Zach Wilson, I think that's the only loss they had, last season. App State is always going to be good. Change coaches, same result when you talk about what those guys do. Georgia Southern is going to really determine what type, the style of offense and their quarterback. When you start looking at the Sun Belt as a whole, BJ, man, you're seeing why, teams around the country don't want to play these guys. But, is Coastal Carolina ready to be like, one of those front runners, in the Sun Belt? Because that's easier said than done, right? You expect Georgia Southern to be good. Louisiana, App State is going to be good. Troy throws their hat in the ring every other year. Is this Coastal Carolina team ready to not just be the leaders of the Sun Belt? Are they ready to be on that national stage week in and week out, especially when that vaunted college football playoff rankings come out?
Well, I think they showed, Kevin, last year that the answer to that question is yes. And I understand for a lot of people around the country, you look at Sun Belt teams and you go, okay, maybe, but look at the pedigree of these programs, right? I mean, even just last year alone, a lot of people look at the Sun Belt last year and they focus solely on Coastal Carolina, and understandably, but you had Arkansas State go win at Kansas State in week 1. You had Louisiana beat Iowa State soundly, and that's an Iowa State team that went on to the Fiesta Bowl, right? And Louisiana won that game very comfortably, by 17 points, I believe, in Ames. So it's not just Coastal Carolina. Of course, we know what Georgia Southern's done over the years, but I think one storyline that stands out to me, Kevin, when I look at the league in 2021 is going to be quarterback play. And the two teams we talked about that are probably going to be ranked in the preseason, Coastal Carolina and Louisiana, Grayson McCall and Levi Lewis are two of the best quarterbacks in the country. Grayson McCall, as a freshman, was top 10 in the country in passer rating. I think Levi Lewis has close to 70 career touchdowns. So one of the most accomplished quarterbacks in the country. Even look beyond those guys. Lane Hatcher at Arkansas State. They have former Florida State quarterback James Blackman there at Arkansas State as well. Gunnar Watson at Troy. Chase Bryce at Appalachian State, who was at Clemson and at Duke. He's now at Appalachian State. Jake Bentley, SEC fans, if you remember that name from when he was at South Carolina, had a lot of success. He went to Utah. He's now at South Alabama. So Jake Bentley, former Gamecock, is now at South Alabama. Quad Brown at Georgia State is a really, really good player. I think expectations are high for Justin Tomlin based on what we've seen him do at Georgia Southern. So I think you look at the quarterbacks around the league, and it is a really good group. And when you have elite quarterback play, you can win a lot of games.
I mean, BJ, I know it's going to be led by the quarterback. You talk about James Blackman. You talk about Jake Bentley. You talk about Chase Bryce. You talk about Gunnar Watson and those guys. You talk about Levi Lewis, Grayson McCall. I know, last week we was talking about the ACC, having some big name stars as far as like the quarterback position led by DJU and Sam Howell. Are we going to get to the end of the year? And can this quarterback play? Because the thing about the Sun Belt, it's always about how do we elevate not just my team, but the status quo of the entire conference. That's what it is. Every single year, you used to App, but when it's not App, it's Louisiana. It's not Louisiana. Last year, obviously, it was, Coastal Carolina. Is the quarterback play good enough this year to not just boost their teams, but boost the overall reputation of the entire conference?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a great point. For a lot of football fans, for a lot of us, right? When we think about teams, we think about quarterbacks. And whether you're talking about, the teams playing for a national championship or the teams on your schedule or, the teams in a league, you think about the quarterbacks. And I think there is proven star power in the Sun Belt. And when you look at McCall and Lewis, Kevin, is probably the top two, Levi Lewis at Louisiana, Grayson McCall at Coastal Carolina, I think those are two of the top 10 quarterbacks in all of college football.
Well, I think you look at it, people,
any league.
I think as you look at it, people will say, well, after what they did last year, is the Sun Belt is it the Chanticleers and everybody else? And I think that's short selling what has been and is a developing conference here in the Sun Belt. And you give them a lot of credit. I mean, this was a league that a couple of years ago had massive turnover. When Georgia Southern and App State came in, you're talking about the FIUs and some teams like that were on their way out. You brought in the Idahos and the New Mexico States, and you're like, yikes, this isn't going to work. And you kick them out, essentially. And now what's left is a pretty solid football league, top to bottom.
And I think you have a geographic footprint that kind of lends itself to familiarity and natural rivalries and whatnot. The Sun Belt was in transition, and you had schools kind of from all over the place, and you certainly appreciated the competition. But I think now to have kind of a more of a central focal point, natural rivalries, fan bases that know each other, I think it's resulted in kind of better balance throughout. But to the question, and a lot of people ask this right around the country, okay, well, what's in the Sun Belt after Coastal Carolina? Coastal Carolina was one of my favorite stories of last season in the entire college football sphere. Just what they were able to do, the way they played, the success. That game against BYU was so incredible, coming down to the goal line tackle. But Louisiana, people really are sleeping on what Louisiana did last year. Again, just to reiterate this, Louisiana played Iowa State, who finished in the national top 10, who made the Fiesta Bowl. Louisiana beat Iowa State 31-14 in Ames. They absolutely dominated that game. Louisiana also beat Appalachian State in Boone. Louisiana won its bowl game where they rushed for almost 300 yards against Texas San Antonio. Louisiana went on the road and beat UAB. Louisiana obviously had a very competitive back and forth game with Georgia Southern, which they won. I think Louisiana, when you talk about kind of right now, not over 10, 15, 20 years, because you think about Georgia Southern's tradition and history, for example. But right now, Louisiana is absolutely one of those programs, if you want to call them G5 programs or mid majors or whatever, that are in the national spotlight, and they've earned that, and they've done a great job. This is a really good program, and I think to have that Iowa State win was such a statement kind of national win. That's a game changer. And then again, as we mentioned, you talk about Arkansas State winning at Kansas State last year. This is a good league. These are really good teams, and I think it's going to be fun to watch this league continue to progress this fall.
Sure. And again, I think this is where people were looking at the MAC a couple of years ago and some of the other conferences. Who could the Mountain West at one point, could they kind of take that mantle? I think it's there for the Sun Belt Conference to step up and to get that job done. We've got so much more to get to here on 3 and Out, including I know BJ loves these potential unwritten rules of baseball and what people take offense to. We'll get to that next. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you along here on 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Some breaking news there for you out in Braves country as we lead you up to the Braves and Mets series. Some good news and some bad news. The good news is Ronald Acuna back in the lineup tonight. The bad news is Huascar Ynoa obviously did not watch Bull Durham as a youngster coming into baseball. You never hit something with your pitching hand. Apparently, he hit the dugout wall after coming out of yesterday's game when he pitched horrendous and broke his hand. He is out now at least a couple of months for rehab. So there you go. The Braves rotation, just when you feel like it's starting to settle in a little bit, Huascar Ynoa, BJ, out for a couple of months. I would imagine 5-6 weeks to heal it, a couple of weeks to start throwing again. So it's mid-May. You're talking post-All-Star break at the earliest.
Wow, this really hurts, literally and figuratively. When you think about Ynoa and what he's meant to this team, has been a great starting pitcher for you this year. Even with the poor performance in Milwaukee, I think an ERA right around 3.00, right there in that elite kind of window. And I mean, quite frankly, he's probably been one of your best hitters too. But to lose him for this extended amount of time, when you already talk about the recent news regarding Mike Soroka, the uncertainty there. I mean, Ynoa's been your best starter. He has been your best starter. And I think he had been consistent enough this season where you were getting to the point where, not that you thought he was going to be a 2-5 guy the rest of the season, but you felt like, hey, this is going to be a front end starter for us. And not that long term that projection's going away, but you felt like he was emerging as an ace for you in 2021. And now that obviously, there's a setback. And I think first and foremost, you wish Huascar the best and hope he can get back soon. But when you think about the rotation already without Mike Soroka, now without Huascar Ynoa, who's been your best pitcher, lot of questions, and that is tough news on a Monday afternoon.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, I understand the frustration that comes, with being a starting pitcher or being, not playing your best. But Huascar, you got to be smarter than that, because now, Kevin, something we was talking about in the break, now you got to go to Sean Newcomb. Now you got to go to Kyle Wright. And the thing about being a pitcher, there aren't too many things in sports that compare to it, because pitching, I mean, you could be a starter asked to, be a bench piece. You could be a starter asked to, come out of the bullpen, things of that nature. But let's just say this. Nobody feels worse now than Huascar. No, I'm not saying that obviously he didn't do this on purpose, but that's how frustrated you are. It's just a natural reaction to want to punch something when you're not playing your best. Only problem is, I mean, that's how you make your money, man. Like, you got to be, you got to kind of ease. And now Snit of all. You're already dealing with the fact that there isn't really a timeline with Soroka right now. We really don't know when he's coming back, right? Now, your most, consistent starter is out for the next a couple of months. When they talk about a pitcher, could be the rest of a couple of months. That means surgery, coming back, not having no setbacks. But now, number one, starting pitcher hasn't been what you wanted to be this season. Now you're going to put more pressure on. Oh my God, you're putting more pressure on your bullpen now. But Kevin, I mean,
who are the five? I mean, we can try to talk it out, but I mean, after Fried, Anderson, and Morton, and I guess Morton has not been great, but after Fried, Anderson, and Morton, who are we looking at here?
You got Drew Smiley, who's pitched better as of late. He's brought his ERA down at least a couple of runs in the last couple of starts. I think his last 2 starts, only 2 runs allowed, 1 of them earned. So he's pitched much better as of late. And then you're talking about Bryce Wilson, potentially Kyle Wright, and Tucker Davidson, who they just called up today, one of the higher-ranked pitching prospects. I know you got Kyle Muller, who is down in the minor leagues, who might be a possibility later in the season. But there are some options. But, I mean, this, again, what we talked about in the open of the show, you get a little momentum going, and then, you punch a wall in the dugout. It's like that's why you don't do some of those things. I know I was joking about, watching Bull Durham and, Kevin Costner saying, look, you never hit something with your pitching hand. You don't do that because this is what happens. And now you're out for 6 weeks at least, plus a rehab to get things back going. And again, that hurts because he was pitching outside of yesterday, of course. Fantastic for the Atlanta Braves, and now you're without him for at least 2 months. So if you're scoring at home, that's 2 months for who knows when on Mike Soroka, and who knows when on Travis Darno. That's three, major pieces of your team not playing for an indeterminate amount of time here.
I mean, do you think it's fair to say, I asked both of you, that obviously Ian Anderson's been really good. I think we've seen Max Fried come back around. Do you think this puts extra pressure on Charlie Morton, given kind of the veteran he is and what he's making to, go out and be a little more effective?
You hope so. I mean, that's what it's supposed to do. I mean, the thing about it is when somebody goes down, the next man up is always going to be, the consistent theme no matter throughout sports, BJ, but it's hard. But the thing about being a pitcher is it's not like you could just, all right, you got to have a short memory. Did you get pulled too early? Did you help your team win? Did you put your team in a position to win the game when you did? When Snit did go to the bullpen. I just think that the situation with Morton, BJ, is what hasn't happened for him thus far this season is only going to add more pressure now because he can't just pitch better just because he knows it's out. You hope that's the case, but it's sports, man. It's rough.
Hey, we'll get the very latest on that as we continue into the final hour. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Final hour here of 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network as we lead you up towards Braves and Mets. Huge series for the Braves against their National League East counterparts. Won't see Huascar Ynoa this series because if you heard the breaking news, well, he wasn't scheduled to pitch anyway, but he's out for at least 2 months with a broken hand after punching the dugout after just a pretty horrendous start there in Milwaukee. So that changes some things, but the Braves at this point may not see DeGrom or Stroman. I know they have an unannounced starter for tomorrow, so you're at least going to miss one of them, BJ, potentially both of them. But if you're Atlanta, obviously that makes these games much more important. You're going to have your healthy pitching going. Obviously, Huascar Ynoa was not going to be one of those guys in this series, but 2 games out, important for you to go at least take 2 out of 3 from the Mets here in this one.
These are critical games. When you think about the storylines at play, you think about kind of positioning yourself for summer contention. And it's not like if you don't do well, your season's over. But in a division where 1 game, 2 games can be the difference in first place or 4th place right now, you've got to find a way to step up when you're playing the division leader, which the Mets are. The Mets had a rough time against Tampa, but prior to that, I think they had won 7 games in a row. So one of the hottest teams in baseball. They're having some injury issues, and you got to go out with who you got. They're going to go out with who they got, and you feel like at home you're the better team. Even though the Mets are in first place, I think at home, when you have the Mets, when you have the Nationals, when you have the Phillies in Atlanta, you got to find a way to win those games. And if you can hold your own and be above 500 against those teams in your division, that's going to manifest itself in the standings. And it's not that games against the Blue Jays don't matter. It's not that games against the Brewers don't matter, but these games count basically 1.5. They count more than those other games. And I'm looking at Max Fried. Max has been a lot better the last couple times out. Obviously, his start to the season was a major disappointment. You go back to early April against Washington, 8 hits, 5 earned runs in a couple of innings. Well, the last few times out against Washington, he went 5, gave up 1 earned run. Obviously, last week, faced Toronto, went 6, gave up just 1 earned run. And the bullpen blew that game. But I think Max Fried has shown you that his confidence is back, that his rhythm is back. And I think now, especially without Ynoa, and I know he wasn't going to pitch this series, but just from a momentum and psychology standpoint, you need Max Fried to come out and give you some energy, give you some positivity on the mound.
Yeah, you need Max Fried to go out there and be that ace. I mean, you need Max Fried to kind of go out there and kind of give that positive joke to the rest of the team, because let's face it, I mean, Huascar Ynoa going out is gonna affect the team whether he's playing in this series or not, because you're not gonna have him moving forward. In the last segment, Kevin talking about different pitchers that is gonna have to step up. Drew Smiley gonna have to step up. Charlie Morton gonna have to step up. Does Sean Newcomb? Does Kyle Wright have to step up now even more, because his Brave teams have been struggling. Even to get wins, it's been a struggle, BJ and Kevin. So I think when you look at this Mets team, a division opponent who, even if you're not getting DeGrom and those guys, it's still going to be a hard out no matter what. I think it's good that I think some news that I think Acuna is going to be in the lineup, which is always good. I just think that good news compared to some really, really bad news is how does this team respond? Because that's been the theme. Snit was saying earlier, it looks like we was getting back to our rhythm. Well, what is the Braves' rhythm? Thus far, this season's been inconsistent. They're good enough. Are they better than their record shows? I think so, because some of these games have definitely gotten away from it. A lot of times the games get away in the first and second inning, and you look up, the Braves are already down 4 or 5 runs in the first and second inning. I think they're going to have to jump on this Mets team that's definitely good enough to beat this Braves team. But I just think that, Kevin, when you look at the fact that you got some bad news, I get it. But you got to be able to go out there and adjust. Something I think you said that John Smoltz or somebody was saying, when you got guys like, Kyle Wright, when you got guys like Sean Newcomb, you ask them to be in and out of the lineup, be starters, be bench players, or come out the bullpen. How much does that mess up the psyche of a pitcher who their entire confidence lies is going to reside on how they take control of the mound when they called upon?
Well, I mean, I think it's just the mindset of a pitcher. It's like, hey, it's my day, my turn to go out there and do what I do. If you don't think it's going to happen, you shouldn't be out there. And I know you can say that for a couple of Braves relievers at times, the way they've pitched. But look, I think this is a Braves team that, you got to adapt and overcome here with what's being dealt. One of your more consistent pitchers goes down over something stupid. I would imagine when he comes back, he probably won't be punching many walls in his future as long as he's playing baseball. So, look, it stinks, but it's the next man up. This is, again, why give the organization credit and Alex Anthopoulos for going out and building pitching arms and building the farm system, because Brian Snitker's first response was, we're going to go inside the organization. We've got arms that can fill that spot. Kyle Wright, it could be one. Tucker Davidson, who they just called up, could be one. Bryce Wilson, who's actually pitched pretty well. I know fans were kind of perplexed when they sent him down the last time. Could be an arm there. And Kyle Muller, one of their top-rated prospects, is another guy that could be one. So just when you think you have enough starting pitching as the added goes, go get more starting pitching. And I think the Braves have done that through their farm system. And BJ, I think if there's one thing, they may not have all worked out, but if there's one thing I think we can say about Alex Anthopoulos Braves is they've never been out of options with guys they can try and turn to. And that also leaves open the possibility to trade or free agent signing, but the Braves haven't had to do that because they are so deep in organizational pitching that they can try a number of guys until somebody goes out there and gets the job done.
Yeah, and I think there are options. You have invested a ton of draft capital, right, in starting pitching. And some fans, because Kevin, we've even heard it, have said, hey, what are we waiting on? Why don't we bring up, whoever the next prospect is and kind of see this guy at the major league level? Well, that may be happening now in the near future. But I don't necessarily know that my response to the injury is, okay, who's going to be the fourth or fifth starter? I think it reinforces the fact that the guys who are already in the rotation need to be at their best. And I think for the most part over the last couple of weeks, you've seen that. You mentioned Drew Smiley. He did not get off to a good start. Very disappointing. ERA, over 8? He's been really good the last couple of times out. And I think he's a guy that's in his early 30s, has been around the game, I know he's had some injury issues, but has been a guy that's dealt with expectations. If he can go out and be a, solid above average pro, that's how you help replace Huascar Ynoa for a couple of months. If Charlie Morton, and I want to be clear, I think Charlie Morton's gonna have a good year. Had a rough outing, a couple of outings ago where he didn't get out of the first or second inning. But if he can get that ERA down from 5.1 to say 4.1, somewhere in that range, that gives you a veteran who more times than not is going to get you into the 6th inning or so, the 5th, 6th, 7th inning. And I think Max Fried, we've seen him look the part the last couple of times out. If he can maintain that status quo and not, whatever the issue was early in the season, not revert back to that, I think all of a sudden the rotation starts to look a little different, kind of regardless of who the 5th starter is. So to me, it's not necessarily, oh my goodness, we have to have this from Bryce Wilson, or we have to have this from, one of the rookies, or is it going to be a bullpen name like Sean Newcomb moving to the rotation? I don't necessarily think that's where the focus has to be. I think it needs to be on your front end rotation guys. Max Fried, we need you to be an ace. You were last year. We need you to be one. Charlie Morton, you've been a multiple time All-Star. You're the experienced kind of 37-year-old on the roster. We need you to go out and get us into the 5th, 6th, 7th inning. Ian Anderson, keep doing you, man. Ian's been really good. I think if the guys who are at the front end of the rotation can continue to improve, clean up a few things, Drew Smiley get a little better, I think that's how you move forward through this, not necessarily looking at a rookie or Bryce Wilson and saying you all of a sudden have to change who you are.
I just hope that they don't try to use Snit as a scapegoat. I know everybody be saying, "Oh, well, Snit's not, he's not managing, he's not managing, the bullpen well." Or we talk about the fact that when it comes to the starting rotation, look, when everything's working, everybody's giving Snit all the praise. When it's not working, you can't give him all the blame. He's not out there throwing one pitch. He understands who's to put in there to give you, because every time you're on the mound, as Kevin said, it's my day, it's my time. Let me go out there, and take full advantage of these opportunities. Up until this point, as a collectively, the pitchers have not been getting it done collectively, whether that's the starters or the bullpen. With Huascar Ynoa out, Mike Soroka's not going to be back for a little while. This is a chance for guys who may have not had the opportunity the way they thought they would have the opportunity, BJ, to be able to go out there and potentially make it hard for when Huascar does come back. Hey, look, man, we got a nice little, because pitching, starting pitching is all about rhythm. It has to be. And when you talk about the bullpen, it's all about guys taking full advantage of the opportunity when their number is called, because you know that, it's blood in the water. You got a couple of guys that are going to be out. Does that make the entire pitching staff, Kevin, step up to the plate to hopefully go from a negative to a positive?
Well, and again, I think it's all about one person's obviously hard luck is somebody else's opportunity here. So Bryce Wilson, maybe this is your turn to prove that you can be a every fifth day starter, right? BJ, we've seen flashes. We've seen some signs of potential ability to do it. And again, you're not talking about a guy that needs to go out there and turn into Tom Glavine or Greg Maddux here and give you 8 innings of 2-hit baseball. But you need to be, competent and go out there and get the job done. And we've seen that from Bryce Wilson from time to time. So I'm interested to see who kind of sticks there, because the Braves have been kind of toying with Kyle Wright. And it seems like Kyle Wright will get 2 starts, and then you won't see him again for 2 months. And then you'll see Bryce Wilson, and then you won't see him again for a month. And Tucker Davidson, again, a highly thought of prospect. We'll see if he gets a start. So I think the Braves will use this to try to find that guy they're most comfortable with. But, hey, it's an opportunity for somebody to step up and maybe steal a spot. Again, things have been rocky with Drew Smiley. This is not a long-term deal with Drew Smiley. Things have been interesting with Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton's on a 1-year deal. So, I mean, these are guys that are coming up, not just pitching for 2021, BJ, but guys showing, look, I am still young and still valuable in the long run to this rotation. I'm ready to be a part of it. Let me show you I can go get it done. So I'm kind of excited about that to see who kind of gets the first crack at it. I know they obviously are non-committal right now because they don't have to be committal to anybody, but I'm kind of interested to see where the Braves thinking lies here, because they've given a couple of guys some opportunities, maybe not consistent opportunities, and it looks like somebody's going to get the shot possibly for at least 2 months here while they wait for Huascar Ynoa to come back.
And what's interesting, too, is you think about the youth in the starting rotation and some of the guys we may see, whether it's, Davidson or Muller or whoever, or Kyle Wright. You also have, youth at catcher. And I think it's going to be fascinating to watch Contreras, who I think we all love and has incredible upside and has been really good already, kind of grow with these young pitchers. And, I mean, does that help a young pitcher, Kevin, when, let's say, you've worked with Contreras at the minor league level and you guys have a history, that all of a sudden, okay, you're at the majors, and obviously every major league catcher is good, but here's a guy that I've worked with that's about my age, who I've probably spent a couple of years with in the system.
Yeah, there's certainly a comfort level that goes along with that as well. And again, I think that'll be good to help the transition for whoever it's going to be, is somebody that's probably got at least a handful of starts with Contreras. I know there wasn't a minor league season last year, so that kind of plays into it as well. But I think that does nothing but help when you make that transition, have a little familiarity with somebody. And we'll have the Braves and the Mets tonight. And again, we'll see if you possibly miss DeGrom and or Stroman, BJ. That's huge if you don't have to see either one of those 2 guys this time.
Yeah, you'd take that. Those guys, especially DeGrom, is just so dominant. You almost, look at a matchup with him and go, we have no chance. We have no chance. And you wish those guys the best. But, yeah, if you're the Braves and you don't face them, I think you'll take that.
Yeah, certainly get a pass there for this series. We got so much more to get to here on 3 and Outs. We lead you up towards Braves and Mets baseball. Again, the Braves going to be without Huascar Ynoa for a little while after he broke his hand punching the dugout coming out of yesterday's ball game. And Ronald Acuna Jr. back in the lineup tonight, so that should be a big boost for the offense as well. This is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. of Central Florida. Safety led Central Florida in tackles there in 2020 and interceptions as well. Richie Grant joins us here on 3 and Out. Richie, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, baby. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Hey, we appreciate you coming on and joining us. Again, take us back to draft weekend. I know it's every football player's dream to be sitting with your family and say, look, don't anybody mess with my phone. The phone rings and they say, hey, it's the Atlanta Falcons. We want to see if you're ready to be drafted. Just describe that moment when you're sitting waiting for the phone call and then it finally comes through.
Oh, man. I'm just sitting there with my family and just patiently waiting, enjoying the draft. And then I get the call. Location said Atlanta, Georgia. I look at the screen. They're like 2 picks away. I just got that feeling in my stomach like I was about to go on a roller coaster ride. Like, oh, man, here we go. So, I got on the phone call. They were asking me, am I ready to be a Falcon? They like the way I play. They're ready for me to come and contribute and things like that. And like the only two feelings I had in my head was just how excited I was, how grateful I was for the opportunity. And that's basically what I just kept saying over and over on the phone. And it was just a surreal moment, man. Like it was just like really like a blur in that moment. Finally got to the phone, told my family where I was going. We all was happy, celebrated a little bit. And finally, after the TV announced it, I was going to Atlanta, got with my family, said a prayer, and broke down like a baby.
Now, Richie, you said, hey, we're sitting there enjoying the draft. Do you enjoy the draft until your name gets called, or are you a nervous wreck? I can't imagine you hey, we're just sitting back casually watching. Are you a nervous wreck saying, I'm not going to enjoy this thing really until that phone rings and they say I'm gone?
A little bit of both. I can't lie. I know I did everything I can. It wasn't anything I could do to that point besides just sit and wait for my name. So it was a little bit of both, man. I definitely knew I put in the work that I needed to get my name called, and that's exactly what happened. So I'm grateful.
The pre-draft process, you have all kind of analysts talking about you. Let me ask you yourself, what are you like as a playmaker? What type of skills are you bringing to the Atlanta Falcons?
I just say great leader, somebody who's going to get the ball back for the offense. My team, I like to create turnovers any way I can, just real ball savvy. And then just the ultimate teammate, man, like a guy who's going to sacrifice for his brother, the guy who's going to pull weight for him and motivate him to give me everything he got, because I'm definitely giving everything I got. And, I like to have fun. And throughout the whole process, I like to keep everything fun. I feel like it's not a job. This is something that I dedicated my life to, and I love it. I got a real passion for it, and it shows out there on the field.
I mean, Richie, when I saw your highlights, man, you a thumper now and then. I mean, I could tell when you trash talking a little bit, or maybe you letting that receiver, that running back know, man, you're going to get a whole lot of that for 60 minutes. I mean, the fact that, you got drafted 40th overall. I mean, I got drafted 40th overall way back in the day, so I know you're going to be a beast just from where you got selected from.
Man, it's an absolute blessing, man. Like, I'm not even going to lie to you. Your name is gonna get called, but when it does, just like, dang, I can't believe my name just got called. You know what I mean? It's just one of those moments that like you'll never forget.
Richie Grant joining us here on 3 and Out. Richie obviously played there at Central Florida. Your time there at Central Florida, obviously Central Florida has become a program that kind of has that chip on their shoulder, like, hey, what do we got to do for people to get us to that next level? Did you guys kind of feed off that in the locker room and just describe kind of being at that program that seemed to be on the up and coming and just for trying to get that chance to break through?
Yeah, so it was definitely a journey. In the beginning, with the staff, we had Coach Frost. He was our head coach. It was all about winning. We just wanted to win. We wanted to have fun doing it, have a little flair about ourselves and things like that. And we was winning so much, it turned into why aren't we getting any recognition? Like, we winning well, putting up good numbers, playing well as a team. And like, it just seemed like every week, like, our name just wasn't discussed. So, it started to turn into a little bit of like, curiosity. Why not? Why not us? Like, what's the problem? This and that, things that was running through our mind. And we tried real hard, to keep our mind focused on just going out there each Saturday and competing. But, in the back of everybody's head, it was, why aren't we getting any respect? Why aren't we getting recognition for the things we're doing? So it turned into a little bit of we wanted to go out there and prove that we were worthy of being in the conversation. All those college playoffs and just moving up in the rankings, because it was one time I think we stayed at like 13 or 14, like 3-4 weeks in a row. We was winning. We just like, we all confused, but and for the most part, try to keep the locker room just focused on just competing on Saturdays.
You go look at your stats, Richie, and, big time performances in big time games, whether it's 10, 15 tackles in a bowl game, an interception in a bowl game, a turnover in a conference title game. I think 16 tackles against Cincinnati. Do you feel like you're a guy that you're at your best in those big games on that big stage?
I'm definitely the type of player, I know when the stage is big. Obviously, any player who tells you the stage is never too big, they lying to you. You do know when you playing on a big stage, and it just all goes back to preparation. I feel like the more you prepare, the harder you work, the easier it becomes to produce and come through for your teammates in moments like that. So really, everything you're doing up until that moment, it's already said. The harder you, like I said, the harder you work, the more you prepare, the easier it becomes in that moment. So the moment doesn't get too big for you, but you always know that it's a big moment.
And Richard, I mean, you being a guy that can definitely go out there and do it all, led your team in tackles and you led your team in picks. I mean, you was a Jim Thorpe Award, a finalist. I mean, when you look at what you do the best, you talk about your leadership ability. You're gonna be on a very, very young secondary. You're gonna be asked to come in and play right away. I mean, how much do you think your leadership ability is gonna help you get out there day one, trying to show them boys I'm ready for this opportunity?
That's the thing, man. The way I lead is so easy because of the work I put in. I gain respect through how hard I work and, my humility. I don't get too big-headed when I do have success. So people just respect that. It's not like a boss around type thing. It's just the whole, like, my attitude. My attitude just earns people respect, and they respect me. And, they in turn, they listen to the calls I make, the advice I give. They just trust me being out there with them. It's been like that my entire life. So I would say it should be the same way. I'm just gonna be the same me, attack it the same way I've always been, and it should play out the exact same way.
Richie Grant, Atlanta Falcons, second-round draft pick out of Central Florida, joining us here on 3 and Out. And Richie, what are your kind of expectations coming into Atlanta? I know they picked high in the draft, but it seems like this is a team that is focused on winning right away, not necessarily your typical team picking third and fourth in the top couple rounds here.
Oh, man. Just like you said, man, we just want to put some more numbers in that W column. It's going to be a process, but we all going to buy in, and that's going to be the beauty of it, coming together as brothers. Like you said, it is young. We do have a couple vets that came in, but for the most part, we are young. So we all just got to buy into each other. They're going to come through working with each other and sacrificing for each other. And I feel like it should be smooth after that. But that is the expectation. We want to put some more numbers in the W column and have fun doing it.
Safety is such an interesting position because you're doing everything. You're tackling near the line of scrimmage. You're obviously covering, backs, tight ends, receivers. Talk about playing that position, especially in football now, where it seems like there's more pressure and more of a spotlight on the position than ever.
Safety position, you asking? Yeah, most definitely. They call us quarterback of the defense for a reason. We making most of the calls, adjustments on the fly. With certain motions, certain splits. Things like that. You got to be able to communicate effectively. You got to have some authority behind your voice. You can't be out there timid. You got to be sure of every call you make. And then comes, the playing ability. As a safety, man, you got to be able to tackle. You got to be able to cover. You got to be able to make calls. You got to be able to adjust, to any situation that's thrown at you. It is very demanding, but I've definitely been preparing myself the right way to go out there and produce and be effective, and not just be a guy that's out there. So the safety position nowadays with the spread league, like I said, you got to tackle from 20 yards deep. You got to cover guys, in the slot. You got to be able to cover bigger tight ends, running backs. You really ought to do it all, guy. You got 10 other team that you can depend on, though. But safety is definitely one of those positions that you can't take lightly.
I mean, Richie, obviously, when it comes to DBs, man, there's always nothing cheap, nothing deep. You got to come up and be that last man, in the box. What would you rather do? I mean, you do it all. You led your team in tackles, led your team in picks. So, do you want to get that pick six so you can dance in the end zone, or do you want to be, make that goal line stand to get, like you said, to get the ball back to the offense?
Well, both of them giving it back, right? I'm not gonna lie to you, man. When I say I'm the ultimate teammate, I'm the ultimate teammate, man. Like, whatever it's going to take to have that W to be +1 at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. Whether that's the pick six and I'm getting the glory, which, you can't even get too much of that because the D-line usually is the one putting the pressure on the QB, or, making that goal line stand, which is something that you as your defense, your team, they'll remember forever. That's something that you'll never forget, making a goal line stand. That's passion, that's grit, that's toughness. So, both of those moments, man, are super, super big. But like I said, it's just whatever it takes to get that W.
Now, Richie, I know you kind of touched on it when we first came on the show. I mean, you're a young man from Mississippi, then you moved to the state of Florida when you're 9 years old, went to UCF. I saw you had offers from teams like Kennesaw State, Citadel, College of Charleston, different teams end up choosing to, go to UCF. Everybody straps it on wants to be able to say, I got drafted. You got drafted. You were the 40th player in the 2021 draft that was headlined by a lot of big-time players. I know you talked about that feeling, but to know your dreams not only came true, you believed in yourself. When you get to college, they say less than 1% make it. You was that less than 1%, and that's something that's going to be forever.
Most definitely. I'm part of that. I'm part of that 1%. You know what? I'm trying to do something even greater, man. And throughout, my pro career, I'm gonna go 110%, get everything I got to achieve that ultimate goal. That's putting on that jacket. So I got big dreams, man, and I plan on achieving them.
Richie Grant, second-round draft pick by the Atlanta Falcons out of Central Florida, our guest here on 3 and Out. Richie, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much, and best of luck to you there in Atlanta.
Thank you so much, y'all. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Richie Grant joining us here on 3 and Out as he's one of the newest members of the Atlanta Falcons going to come in, help try to shore up the back end of that Falcons defense. This is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you along here on 3 and Out on this Monday, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben counting you up towards Braves and Mets, game 1 of a 3-game series here starting this evening. And again, Braves know Huascar Ynoa, who is out for at least 2 months with a broken hand. Ronald Acuna back in the lineup tonight. We'll get you to that in just a little bit. Max Fried going to go on the bump for the Braves. But talk a little college football here on the show as well. We look ahead to 2021. Georgia Tech, Jeff Collins came in, the 404, the culture, all that kind of stuff going on. Hasn't produced a whole lot of wins in this rebuild. Is 2021 a year they're good enough to get to a bowl game? The silence is deafening.
I think the schedule is tough, and it's one of those things where I think Georgia Tech's going to be better this season, but I don't necessarily know that that's going to translate to a bowl game per se. I mean, when you look at this schedule, I'm trying to load it up to make sure I have it here. Let me just read through a couple of stretches here. And you have Northern Illinois and Kennesaw State to open the year. So I think a couple of opportunities to get dubs. Then you go at Clemson, North Carolina, Pitt, at Duke. Now, on paper, maybe you feel like you're better than Duke, but Pitt is a team that's probably fringe preseason top 25. North Carolina's preseason top 10. Clemson might be preseason number 1. Then after the bye week, you have at Virginia, and I know historically Georgia Tech has struggled in Charlottesville. Virginia Tech, who's a fringe top 25 team. At Miami, who's preseason top 10, top 15. Boston College, who quietly won 7 games last year. At Notre Dame, who's preseason top 10, and Georgia, who's preseason top 5. So I think Georgia Tech is going to be better. I think Jeff Collins is kind of building Georgia Tech foundationally, recruiting well, and I think you're seeing that with some of the players that are already stars, the young players. But in terms of saying we're going to get to 6-7 wins, I think just as currently constituted, that may be tough. And I like a lot of the players. I think Jeff Sims, Jahmyr Gibbs, Tariq Carpenter, a Coastal Georgia product. These are all ACC potential type players. But Ben, of that 12-game schedule, you'll be favored in the first 2. You'll probably be favored against Duke. Those 3 games might be the only 3 games where you're favored, and you're facing what, 5, 6 top 15 type teams?
Yeah, and the thing is too, look, I also agree with Kevin when you say Jeff Collins haven't really done a whole lot, but the schedule hasn't done him any favors. If Jeff Collins is finding a way to get to 6 wins this year, I mean, are we potentially talking ACC Coach of the Year type stuff when you look at this schedule? I mean, BJ, you talking about the first 2. I mean, people talk about Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois used to be that team. Didn't Northern Illinois go to like a Orange Bowl back in the day or something like that?
Yeah.
And then Kennesaw State. So you're looking at a team that plays the offense that you just, got away from, that sent you, to an ACC championship game. Pitt is going to have a defense. Boston College is much better. You're going to have to find a way to beat, but you're going to have to find a way to either go 1-1 with Virginia Tech, or 2-0. No one's going to worry about what happened with Clemson. You're going to hope that Miami's season isn't going the way they want to potentially get a win against those guys. North Carolina, BJ, they can go back and forth because while Sam Howell is, going to be a guy that's going to do big things, he also lost to a Florida State team at home last year. Who knows what type of team you're going to get? You're not the schedule makers didn't do them any favors because the last 3 games of the year is Boston College, Notre Dame, and Georgia. Notre Dame. They have to do their ACC. They have to make sure they meet those standards, I guess, year in and year out. But I'm gonna really, really be interested to see what Sims does in year 2. I didn't even know they started left tackle with a true freshman last year too. You got Gibbs and Sims and Carpenter, those guys gonna have to be big time contributors this year. But BJ, this is why you go to Georgia Tech. Jeff Collins understand that, look, it's not getting any easier. No one's going to fault him with what happens with Georgia Tech. With Clemson. Maybe even Notre Dame. But when it comes to North Carolina, when it comes to Clemson, when it comes to Boston, when it comes to Boston College, when it comes to Virginia Tech, Virginia, you're going to have to find a way to, make those games a dogfight to try to get you one. Because 6 wins with this schedule, BJ, you said something before the start of the show. This is up there for maybe one of the hardest, if not the hardest schedule in college football next year.
Well, it is because think about this. And understand that just because you're saying a team is highly ranked doesn't mean there can't be an upset. Again, Florida State beat North Carolina last year, but on paper, right, as you sit here and look at Georgia Tech's schedule, I have seen polls that have Notre Dame, Clemson, Georgia, Miami, and North Carolina all in the top 10. 5 of the top 10 teams in the country you play. At worst, those are 5 of the top 15. And again, we've seen a number of different polls. Some polls have all 5 of those teams in the top 10. And then you're talking about a Virginia Tech program that has quietly, won a lot of games. You're thinking about Pitt. It's going to have one of the best defenses in all of college football. You're talking about Boston College, who won 7 games in year 1 under Jeff Hafley. This is a really difficult schedule. And I've long said this, Kevin, you know that college football is half how good you are, half who you play. And I think Georgia Tech is capable of playing with just about anybody on their schedule. But the problem is you're playing 5 of the top 10 to 12 teams in the country. If you just say you're going to lose all those games, and we don't know that for a fact, but if you go off of the odds, it's going to be tough to win one of those games. You have to be near perfect the rest of the way out to even qualify for a bowl game. It's just a brutal schedule. And to me, if Georgia Tech doesn't make a bowl game this year, that doesn't mean Jeff Collins isn't moving the program in the right direction.
Well, I think you have to show progress, though. I mean, you start off selling a lot of sizzle, right? I mean, and you've gotten better in the recruiting rankings, but sometimes after the sizzle is there, you got to show a little meat on that sizzle. And again, going 3 wins again, probably not going to make a lot of people happy. I think the offense, you've got some talented playmakers there, but Jeff Collins, kind of known as a defensive guy. I think that's where you want to see the team really improve, is making plays on defense, getting off the field, allowing that offense more opportunities to go out there and get things done, and see some of the progression there on the defensive side of the ball to keep you competitive in those games. And again, I think in the ACC, to me, just looking at the history of the ACC, especially the Coastal Division, you shouldn't be scared of anybody on that side of the deal, because again, the ACC Coastal is nothing if not chaos, right? You've had 7 different winners of the ACC Coastal in 7 years. Make it 8 if you want to count Notre Dame. I know they didn't do divisions last year, but you've literally had a different winner each and every year. To me, that means you play well enough, it's fair game. It's up for grabs there in the Coastal. I know there's some talented teams, but the ACC, I think we heard the term Clemsoning with Clemson, but it's really ACCing itself, in that you should not be scared of anybody in the ACC Coastal Division if you're Jeff Collins. Now, yes, you got to play Clemson, you got to play Georgia, you got to play Notre Dame. I mean, that is what it is. You got to start somewhere, though, and I think pushing towards bowl eligibility is a start. Certainly winning 3 games, in my opinion, would be a negative, no matter how tough the schedule is. You've recruited better, you got to coach better, and I think get your defense coached up to a level where Jeff Collins has had some of his defenses in the past.
No. Look. I agree with you that 3-9 would be a disappointment. But let me ask you this: if you go 5-7 with this schedule, I don't think that would be a disappointment.
I understand that. Is 5 more than 3? Well, then you're moving in the right direction, because so far you haven't been able to crack that list. So that's just kind of how I see it there for Jeff Collins. Is look, you can make all the excuses in the world and say, well, look at our schedule. Well, I mean, dadgum, half of that schedule is going to be there every year. Clemson ain't going anywhere. Georgia's not going anywhere. You're still playing the teams in the ACC. So at some point you got to say, coach, the schedule ain't going to change that much. You got to figure out a way to get better. And I think getting from 3 up to somewhere at least shows progress in the right direction. I don't think anybody's faulting the transition, but at some point you got to move out of transition mode and move into progress mode. And 3 wins ain't going to cut it, no matter what the schedule is.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes too, I mean, when you talk about the fact that they have been able to recruit better, I mean, when Jahmyr Gibbs decided to go on, everybody was like, that's a great pickup. I just think that at the end of the day, Kevin, yes, dare I say they got that Texas A&M schedule, BJ, a couple of years ago when they had 5 of the top 10 teams. They went 7-5. I don't know if they're going to go 7-5 this year, Kevin, but if they get to 6 wins, that might be ACC Coach of the Year type stuff.
And it very well might be. Again, I think you just have to see some of that young talent step forward, and I think you want to see the coaching scheme up what you do have to get you to a couple more wins there at least on the schedule, no matter how tough it is. I mean, obviously in the other games you want to start competing would be another benchmark to try to get is, hey, if you're going to play Clemson and Georgia and Notre Dame, you got to go compete. You can't be, 52-7. I mean, you want to go out there and start closing the gap on the scoreboard as well. We've got Braves baseball for you coming up right around the corner. We'll hear from Chris Domino tomorrow on the show, as well as Rich Stiles, PGA Championship this week. So looking forward to chatting with Rich on the show as well. Braves coming up. Max Fried on the mound tonight for the Braves, trying to get off to a good start, BJ, as you are going up against the New York Mets in, I don't say they're must-haves, but you really need this to kind of keep pace there in the East.
Big series, and you need Max to set the tone. You need Ronald Acuna to set the tone in there as well. But first meeting between the two teams, really big series starting tonight in Atlanta. And
again, Ronald Acuna back in the lineup bin quickly. Want to see him go off, especially given the bad news with the starting pitching earlier today.
This is when you need Ronald Acuna to be Ronald Acuna. Kevin, try to leave the yard early, try to give momentum to not just himself but to the whole team.
Yeah, so Max Fried going tonight for the Braves. Braves are 2 games behind those Mets, so you're gaining games on first place with every win you can put in the docket here in this series. Pre-game show coming up next. First pitch just after 7 o'clock. We'll see you tomorrow. 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We're streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. Go to our YouTube page, ESPNCoastal.com, podcast version of 3 and Out each and every day. We'll see you soon on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.